Picture this. It is a little after 10 on a mild Sunday night, and you are walking home along a wide suburban road. 4 lanes, decent streetlights, almost no traffic. The nearest crosswalk is a quarter-mile away, and you can see headlights in the distance, but they are far off. And you have crossed this road 100 times. You step off the curb. You are watching the pavement, maybe your phone, maybe just the middle distance where tired people keep their eyes. The headlights are closer now than you thought. You do the math without realizing you are doing math, and somewhere in the back of your skull, a very old alarm system begins to fire. Hello, I am Dr. Morbid, and this is a case file. Tonight we are examining what actually happens to the human body when it is struck by a moving vehicle. Roughly 1.2 million people die on the world's roads every year, and more than a quarter of them are pedestrians. It is one of the most common violent deaths on the planet, and almost nobody understands the mechanics of it. You are about to. Let us open the file. First, the medical setup, because before we talk about your body, we need to talk about physics, and physics is not on your side. A midsize car weighs around 3,500 pounds. You weigh, let us be generous, 180. Kinetic energy scales with the square of speed, which means a car at 40 miles per hour carries 4 times the energy of a car at 20, not double. This is why speed is the single most important variable in whether you survive tonight. The data here is well established. Struck at just over 20 miles per hour, about 90% of pedestrians survive. At just over 30, 1 in 4 dies. At just over 40, it is a coin flip. Approaching 60, roughly 9 out of 10 pedestrians die. The car, for the record, will sustain minor cosmetic damage. This asymmetry is the entire problem. When a standard sedan hits an adult, the injuries follow a predictable script that trauma surgeons call the wrap trajectory. The bumper strikes your legs. Your body folds and rotates onto the hood. Your head strikes the hood or windshield. Then the vehicle brakes or continues, and you are thrown and you hit the ground, which is a second, completely separate collision. 3 impacts, 1 event. Now let us walk through it, stage by stage, at 40 miles per hour in your body. Stage 1, the last 1.5 seconds. The average human takes about 1.5 seconds to perceive a hazard and physically react to it. That sounds fast. It is not. A car at 40 miles per hour covers nearly 60 feet every second, so by the time your brain has even registered the danger, the vehicle has closed almost 90 feet. Right now, your amygdala is flooding your bloodstream with adrenaline, and something strange is happening to time. It appears to slow down. This is not a movie effect. Under extreme fear, your brain encodes memory far more densely than usual, so the moment feels stretched, detailed, almost calm. You will notice absurd things. The color of the hood. A parking sticker. Researchers who study this call it subjective time dilation. You will call it the longest second of your life, and depending on how tonight goes, that may be literally true. Stage 2. First impact. The bumper strikes you just below the knee. Here is a detail most people find genuinely unsettling. You do not feel it happen. The impact itself lasts a few hundredths of a second, but pain signals travel along nerve fibers at best, around 30 meters per second, and then require processing time in the brain. By the time the message arrives, the damage is already historical. Your tibia and fibula fracture on the impact side, often in multiple places. If the bumper catches higher, your femur goes too. Your femur is the strongest bone in your body, capable of withstanding enormous force. The car has not been informed and does not care. In the trauma bay, this pattern of leg fractures is so consistent that surgeons can often estimate bumper height and vehicle type from your X-rays alone. Your legs are now, functionally, a written record of the collision. Stage 3. The wrap. With your legs swept out from under you, your center of mass pivots toward the vehicle. Your hip and pelvis strike the leading edge of the hood, and the pelvis is a ring of bone, which matters because rings tend to break in more than one place, and the pelvis is packed with major blood vessels. A serious pelvic fracture can quietly pour liters of blood into your abdomen while looking, from the outside, like nothing at all. Your torso slams down onto the hood, and then comes the injury that will most likely decide whether you live. Your head strikes the hood or the windshield. Inside your skull, your brain, which has the consistency of firm gelatin, continues moving at 40 miles per hour until it collides with the inside of your own head. It strikes the front, rebounds, and strikes the back. a mechanism called coup contra coup. The rotation of the impact shears the long, delicate connections between neurons, an injury called diffuse axonal injury, which is exactly as bad as it sounds. Traumatic brain injury is the leading cause of death in pedestrian collisions. Everything after this point may or may not include you being conscious for it. Stage 4. The second collision. The driver, who saw you somewhere in that last second and a half, is braking hard, which means the car decelerates and you do not. You leave the hood carrying most of your original speed and travel through the air. And then you meet the road, which is where the second collision happens, the one nobody thinks about. Asphalt does not deform, does not crumple, and offers no give whatsoever. Whatever the first impact left intact, the ground now audits. Ribs fracture. If enough of them break in enough places, a section of your chest wall can begin moving independently of the rest, which makes breathing mechanically inefficient at the precise moment you need it most. A fractured rib can puncture a lung. The aorta, the largest artery in your body, is anchored at one point in your chest, and violent deceleration can tear it at that anchor. If that happens, this case file ends in under a minute, and there is very little anyone can do about it. Stage 5. The pavement. Assume the aorta held. You are lying on the road, and here is the cruelest part of the entire event. You might feel okay. Adrenaline and your body's own natural opioids are suppressing pain so effectively that trauma patients with catastrophic injuries routinely tell paramedics they are fine and try to stand up. Do not trust this feeling. It is a chemical loan, and the interest rate is severe. Inside, if your pelvis or spleen or liver is bleeding, you are losing circulating volume. You have about 5 liters of blood. Lose 15% and you feel mostly normal. Lose 30% and your heart is racing. Your skin goes pale and cold, and a strange anxiety sets in because your brain is quite literally not getting enough oxygen to stay calm. Lose 40% and confusion arrives, then drowsiness, and your vision begins to narrow at the edges as your circulatory system triages, abandoning your limbs, then your gut, defending the brain and heart until it cannot. Trauma doctors talk about deaths in 3 waves. Some people die in the first seconds, from brain, spine, heart, or aortic injury. Some die in the first minutes to hours from bleeding. And this group is why the golden hour exists, because these deaths are frequently preventable with fast surgery, and some die days or weeks later from infection and organ failure. Lying on that road, cold spreading through you under a streetlight, you do not yet know which wave you are in. And this is the point where, medically, the story ends for you because you are alive and watching this, and the second person can only take us so far. So let us talk about someone this actually happened to. Her name was Elaine Hertzberg. She was 49 years old, and on the night of March 18th, 2018, she was walking a bicycle across Mill Avenue in Tempe, Arizona, mid-block, at around 10 at night, on a wide, multi-lane road. Almost exactly the scenario you just imagined. The vehicle that struck her was a Volvo SUV traveling at about 39 miles per hour, and it was not an ordinary car. It was a self-driving test vehicle operated by Uber with a human safety driver behind the wheel. Elaine Hertzberg became the first pedestrian in history killed by an autonomous vehicle. The federal investigation that followed is one of the most detailed collision reports ever produced, and it found that the car's sensors detected her roughly 5.5 seconds before impact. 5.5 seconds. At that distance, an alert driver stops comfortably, but the software could not decide what she was, classifying her repeatedly as an unknown object, then a vehicle, then a bicycle, and its automatic emergency braking had been disabled during testing. The system was relying on the human behind the wheel, and the human behind the wheel was, according to investigators, streaming a television show on her phone. She looked up about a second before impact. You already know from stage 1 how far a car travels in 1 second. Elaine was struck, wrapped, thrown, and died of her injuries at the hospital. 2 safety systems, 1 silicon and 1 human, and both were looking elsewhere. For historical context, the first pedestrian ever killed by a car in Britain was a woman named Bridget Driscoll, struck in London in 1896 by a demonstration vehicle traveling at approximately 4 miles per hour. The coroner at her inquest expressed the hope that such a thing would never happen again. It has since happened tens of millions of times. We were warned early, and at walking speed. So why does this matter to you, the person watching, presumably not currently lying on a road? 3 reasons. First, speed. That fatality curve is the most important set of numbers in this entire file. The difference between a driver doing 25 and a driver doing 40 is very often the difference between a limp and a funeral, which is why speed limits near pedestrians are not bureaucratic decoration, they are dosage instructions. Second, visibility and geometry. Most pedestrian deaths happen in the dark, on wide, fast roads, away from crosswalks, exactly like a lanes, and increasingly they involve tall SUVs and trucks, whose high front ends strike the chest and pelvis directly instead of the legs, which meaningfully worsens survival. Third, the aftermath. Because if you ever witness a pedestrian collision or survive one, the physiology you just learned changes what you should do. And that brings us to the card, the warning signs card, for anyone who has just been struck by a vehicle or is standing over someone who has. Sign 1. They say they feel fine. After significant impact, feeling fine means nothing. Adrenaline is writing checks the circulatory system cannot cash, and internal bleeding is silent. Sign 2. Declining mental state. Someone who is talking and is now confused, unusually sleepy, or hard to rouse because certain brain bleeds allow a deceptively lucid interval before rapid deterioration. Sign 3. Pale, cold, clammy skin with a rapid weak pulse, which is shock, meaning blood loss, meaning the clock is running. The one intervention, do not move them and do not let them walk it off. Keep them still to protect the spine. Keep them warm. Apply firm, direct pressure to any visible bleeding and stay until help arrives. The 1 number, 911, or your local emergency number immediately, even if they insist they are fine, especially if they insist they are fine. And while you are here, if someone you know needs to see this, share it. And if you want more case files just like this one, subscribe because Dr. Morbid is just getting started. Closing the file. A car versus a human body is not a fight. It is arithmetic, 3,500 pounds against 180. And the arithmetic was settled before you stepped off the curb. Elaine Hertzberg had 5.5 seconds of machine attention and none of the humankind. You now have something she was never given, which is the full clinical picture, so look twice. Cross where the light is and slow down when the road belongs to people. This has been Dr. Morbid. The file is closed. You, statistically speaking, are not. Try to keep it that way.